Hey guys, welcome back to Vital Sunday Online. I hope you're keeping well. We miss you guys so much. We love you all, and we've been praying for you in these last couple of months during lockdown. We're looking forward to being able to hang out with some of you guys in life groups and groups of 10 over summer, and hopefully maybe a wee bit more than 10 if the restrictions ease a little bit over summer. But before we get into the talk this week, why don't we take a look at your challenge for this week? So for this weekly challenge, I was trying to think of something that we all have. So some of the challenges you had, like tennis balls and footballs and stuff, which some of you guys might not have. So I was thinking, what do we all have? I thought socks. Okay, so the challenge this week is, I don't know if you can see, to throw socks from 5 yards away into a little bucket or bowl. Okay, so you have 30 seconds to see how many bundles of socks you can throw in. So I'm going to try and do a couple here just to show you. Okay, it's quite windy, so it'll be tough. Okay, so mark out 5 yards. 1, 2, 3, 5. I'll just try to get them in. So I hope you guys have fun trying out that challenge this week. But now let's get into the talk. I'll not be too long this week, hopefully. So we've been on this theme looking at the disciplines of life. We've looked at lots of different habits that you can start to do that will help you become more like Jesus and help you experience fullness and freedom that comes with following Jesus. So we've got a couple more of those to do, and then we're going to do something slightly different over summer for Vital Sunday. But this week we're looking at silence and solitude. So I'm sure some of you guys know what silence is, but maybe not so much solitude. So I'm just going to explain a wee bit what it is, look at some of the examples that we find from Jesus in the Bible, and then how that can benefit us. And then you'll go into your small groups on WhatsApp. So firstly, we all know what silence is. There's two parts to it. There's internal silence and external silence. So we need to have times in our lives where we still ourselves and silence external noises like music, turning the TV off, the Xbox off, where there's even just no talking or chatting around you. It's just silence. You're just in a room with no one else, and it's just silence. So that's external silence. But we also need to become more silent internally in ourselves. So I don't know about you, but if you ever sit down at night when you go to bed or whatever and you're just in a room by yourself, it can be quiet, but there's lots of noise in your head. There's lots of thoughts going on in your head, maybe different things going on. So we need to learn to silent our minds and our hearts. You can have lustful thoughts, you could have thoughts about the future, maybe thoughts about something you regret that you did during the day, and these can just consume your mind. So we need to learn how to be still and be silent in our minds internally as well. So that's a wee bit on silence. And then solitude, it's pretty simple. Solitude might sound like a complicated word, but solitude just means when you are alone with God. It's just you and God and your soul, just you and Him. Solitude is when you set aside time to just allow God to feed your soul, to grow and mature you into the person that He wants you to be. This can be difficult because our culture today creates so much distraction and disconnection that people find it really hard and difficult to connect to God. A lot of people will often say that they think God is absent, or why doesn't God speak to me, and I don't sense God in life and all this stuff. But what if the problem is actually that we are the ones that are absent? We've been so distracted, disconnected, that we don't give God the time or the space to speak and to be present in our lives. And that's what silence and solitude is all about. It's giving God time and space to move and speak into our lives. So if we look at example of Jesus, there's literally, the Bible is flooded with stories of silence and solitude and the importance of that. But I'm just going to look at a couple of examples from the life of Jesus. So firstly, in Matthew chapter 3, Jesus has just been baptized and he's ready to start his mission, and his ministry. But before he goes into his ministry, it says that the Spirit led him into the wilderness, and we know that Jesus went and he was tempted by the devil for 40 days and 40 nights. And it was in this place of fasting and praying and being alone for 40 days and 40 nights that prepared him for his ministry and all that God wanted him to do. So imagine that, being on your own in silence, fasting and praying for 40 days and 40 nights. I'll not ask you to do that, but that is how Jesus' ministry started, and it shows the importance of that. Then in Mark chapter 1, Jesus has essentially finished his first day of ministry. It's been really busy. He's been preaching, healing people. You'd think he maybe deserved the lie-in after that busy day. But then we read in Mark chapter 1 verse 35, it says this: "Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went to a solitary place where he prayed." Okay, so solitary place just means he got up and went to a quiet place and he prayed. So after this busy day, Jesus got up in the early hours of the morning to go and to be alone with God, to spend time in silence, to spend time in solitude. And that's the example that he sets us. Then in Mark chapter 6, the disciples got very tired after doing a couple of weeks of mission work, of kingdom work, of teaching. And Jesus realizes this, and in Mark 6 verse 31 to 32, Jesus says, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." So they went away by themselves in a boat to a quiet place. So Jesus realized that they needed rest, and they went away to a quiet place to be with God. But lots of people actually turned up. They realized Jesus was there, and Jesus had compassion on them, and he started to teach them, and he sent the disciples off in a boat. And then Mark tells us that after preaching and doing all this stuff with a crowd that turned up late at night, Jesus went up a mountainside to pray. Again, he goes up a mountain to be with God in silence and in solitude. And then in Luke, it says that Jesus went to a quiet place 9 different times, that Jesus went to a quiet place to be with God on his own. In Luke 5 verse 16, it says Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. He made a point to sneak off and be alone with God. This is one of my favourite disciplines, silence and solitude. At the very start I found it really, really difficult, but now I absolutely love it, and it brings me joy and it brings me life. And if we are able to build this silence and solitude of being quiet and being still and being alone with God, it will benefit you so much. I can promise you that. You'll become more present to God. You'll start to experience him more in your life and sense him every single day. You'll start to be more present to other people, to the world. You'll start to see the world the way God sees it. You'll start to be more present to yourself and realize some of the things that are going on in your life and what God's saying about those things. You will begin to hear God's voice more clearly. You'll begin to hear God speak his love over you. You'll begin to get God's perspective on life and his place for you in this world. And when you spend more and more time in silence and in solitude with God, your lives will become centered on God. Everything will revolve around God as you spend some time in silence and in solitude. And so Henry Newman once said, this is quite challenging. This is like a Christian writer. He said this once: "Without solitude, it is virtually impossible to live a spiritual life." So he's basically saying, without spending time in silence and in being alone with God, it's very, very difficult to follow Jesus if you don't do that. And so this is something that we need to be doing in our lives. So how, just finally as a response, what you guys can be doing in the next couple of weeks to do this. How can we do this in our lives? Well, as I said, firstly, it didn't come easy to me, so we need to start slow. So maybe take 5 minutes each morning and just be in complete silence. If your thoughts get distracted, then just say, "Come, Lord Jesus," again, and just allow yourself to recenter on God. Try that for 5 minutes and then develop it longer and longer. And try and spend some time in silence, listening to God. And then in terms of solitude, of being alone with God, that can look different for many different people. For me, I like going away and being in nature. I'd go to like a forest park or to the beach, just me by myself with my Bible, and I'll go and I'll be alone with God, spend time in silence, spend time reading His Word, spend time doing a bit of prayer. It might be for you, you might go on a walk around your village. Maybe you'll find a quiet place in your garden. Maybe you have like a games room in your house that you could go and sit in, just where you can get away from the world, away from other people, and be alone with God. Think of what suits you best, to spend time alone with God. You should not take your phones with you when you're doing silence or solitude. If you're going away to be alone with God, leave your phone in the house or put it away from you. And yeah, just those are some tips. But I'm gonna be sending out a little document of tips of how you can actually start to practice silence and solitude in your life. So you can look at that. It'll be sent into your WhatsApp groups as you go through these questions, and that can be your response in the weeks ahead. Use some of the tips that I give to start to practice silence and solitude, and you'll begin to see how it just will change and transform your life. And so yeah, just head over to your groups now and go and chat with your leaders. That would be great. I love you all, and I'll hopefully see you soon.